my pretty, and your little dog, too.
People are taking the lyrics of Defying Gravity and really holding space with that.
I didn't know that that was happening.
I've seen it, yeah.
That's really powerful.
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking.
Alrighty, folks, you've been waiting for it. We're here to review the brand new blockbuster musical, Wicked Part 1. This video is sponsored by our friends at ExpressVPN. So, I know the question you're asking. Am I going to burn Barbies? Am I going to set Wicked dolls on fire? Am I going to take some sort of bulldozer and run it directly through a model of Oz? Who knows? Actually, here's the thing. The movie's good. The movie's actually quite good. So, let me give you the lead up. I like the original musical. I have some ideological problems with the musical that we can talk about, what it stands for, what is the moral that they're attempting to promulgate here, why the very books by Gregory Maguire are sort of a perversion of the original L. Frank Baum story. But put all of that aside. As a movie, the movie is quite good. So let me begin with some of the thematic stuff. Okay, so thematically, I'm a big fan of the original Oz books. Okay, the original Oz books are innocent. They're for kids. My daughter, who's 10, has read many of them. They are not replete with a bunch of sort of woke ideology. The Gregory Maguire books are very different because the entire books are predicated on the idea that actually the Wicked Witch of the West is good and Glinda is at best kind of a fellow traveler quisling for the bad guys and the Wizard of Oz is bad. I just have a generalized problem with people boulderizing great works of art and claiming them as their own. I'm not a big fan of that, the sort of attempt to reverse the original morality of the story and then provide some rationale that has a modern read. And when this book originally came out, it was supposed to be a rip on the Wizard of Oz as George W. Bush. And the idea was the Wizard of Oz, who was George W. Bush, was looking for someone he could blame for his own unpopularity. There's a lot of talk about that at the time. So what I'm saying here is not really out of the box. And then the musical came out and it mirrored a lot of those same morals. Didn't like that very much in terms of the morality. But the musical as it is great. And the reason the musical is great, just as a piece of work, is because Stephen Schwartz is uber talented. Stephen Schwartz, who wrote the music and the lyrics. If you know musical theater, you'll know that he also did that for a show called Pippin, which is a very good show and has a bunch of excellent numbers in it. He also happens to be the guy who wrote the songs in, for example, Prince of Egypt. He wrote the lyrics when he combined with Alan Menken for Pocahontas. So again, Stephen Schwartz, a really, really talented guy. And so Wicked, the songs are great. The lyrics are quite good. And so you're taking really good source material and transferring it to screen. So now the musical has been sort of broadened out to be a moral referendum on why people who are outsiders are treated badly. Elphaba, who's the Wicked Witch of the West, is treated badly because she has green skin.
It's because I'm green, isn't it?
And her sister, Nessa, is treated badly because she's in a wheelchair. And the animals are treated badly because they're animals and all the... Okay, but let's put aside the sort of value system of the musical itself. How is this as a movie? And the answer is, it's quite good. So the director of the movie, John Chu, who did Crazy Rich Asians and also did In the Heights, he knows how to work the camera. He knows how to move the camera through scenes, and he knows how to choreograph scenes so that they are fun to watch and interesting to watch. The performance is a little bit uneven. I think that Cynthia Erivo is uber talented, like preternaturally talented. She's great in everything. She can act, she can sing. She makes Elphaba's character much more interesting than Elphaba's character was probably in the original musical. In the original musical, if you saw it on Broadway, it was Kristen Chenoweth playing Glinda, and it was Idina Menzel playing Elphaba. Idina Menzel was a much less interesting Elphaba than Cynthia Erivo's Elphaba. And Cynthia Erivo has pipes on her. I mean, she can really, really belt. She can really sing. So she's terrific in it. Ariana Grande, by contrast, does not live up to the standard of Kristen Chenoweth. There actually is a scene later on in the movie in which both Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel do a cameo scene. And you can see why Kristen Chenoweth won a Tony for her performance, because she would have been way better. If this had been made 20 years ago, she would have been a way better Glinda than Ariana Grande, who's quite mannered, who can't quite bring off kind of the cutesy charming thing. It starts to grate after a little while. She's kind of one note, Ariana Grande. Also, she doesn't have the voice of Cynthia Erivo. So every time she goes up, it feels like she's going into head voice. She doesn't have the ability to belt Broadway style. She has a much smaller voice than Cynthia Erivo. So that means that the entire movie tends to tilt in Elphaba's direction, as opposed to Glinda being much more of a focal point in the original stage musical. That said, they're both fine. I think Erivo's way better than Grande, but Grande's fine. I don't think she's awful or anything. She's just the same thing over and over and over. Okay, the other performances. Jeff Goldblum is the Wizard of Oz. Kind of weird, but then again, Joel Grey played it on Broadway, and he was kind of weird. He's the guy from Cabaret. I didn't know Jeff Goldblum could sing at all. Apparently he has a couple of jazz albums, which is the most Jeff Goldblum thing that I've ever heard, actually. But he's fine as the Wizard of Oz. I will say that Madame Morrible, who's played by Michelle Yeoh, is wildly miscast because she can't sing at all. Like, at all. She can't carry a tune.
So he sends me the script. I call him back and go, John, you realize she sings, right? You realize I don't sing, right? And he goes, you'll be fine.
Very good actress, but also can't sing. Jonathan Bailey as Fiyero is quite charming. He can sing. He can dance. Again, I think he lacks a little bit of fire, but overall, he's good. And Ethan Slater plays Bach. And I was made aware this is mostly relevant because Ethan Slater dumped his wife in order to shtup Ariana Grande a couple of years ago, which just, put that one in the book of people whose lives Ariana Grande has ruined, because apparently that book is ever growing, sort of like Taylor Swift. Okay, so that's the cast. As far as the actual production, the actual look of the film, the parts that are real live sets look amazing. There are some early sets, Oz itself. A lot of the stuff looks great. As the movie progresses, you get more and more CGI. And very often in a lot of films that are sort of sci-fi based or fantasy based, the more CGI is used, the less it looks good. And in the very last couple of scenes, a lot of CGI is happening, and so it looks actually worse the last couple of scenes than it does earlier on in the movie. But overall, Oz looks beautiful. The costuming is wonderful. The lighting is done really well. It's very fun to look at. It's sort of, everything is candy colored, which is what it should be because that's Oz. I mean, if you go back to the original 1939 musical, then what you see is that Oz is brightly colored, and it's supposed to be directly in distinction to the black and white / sepia world that Judy Garland is inhabiting. There are a couple of touches, by the way, in the film that are references to the film, the 1939 Wizard of Oz film, and not just to the musicals. There are a couple of musical cues where you'll hear them play a couple of sort of undertones that are from the 39 musical, which is kind of fun. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, using the internet without ExpressVPN, it's like having a private conversation in public. Everyone can hear what you're saying. And in today's digital world, that's exactly what's happening with your online activity. Every website you visit, every search you make, your internet service provider sees it all. And thanks to regulations the left pushed through, ISPs can now legally sell your private information to big tech companies and advertisers without your permission. That's why I use ExpressVPN. It's like having a digital shield that protects your online activity from prying eyes. Your ISP can't see which websites you visit. They can't package up your data to sell it to the highest bidder. Everything is encrypted and secured through their VPN servers. ExpressVPN couldn't be simpler. One click, that's it. It works on all your devices, phones, laptops, even your home router, protecting everyone in your family. Right now, you can take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday, Cyber Monday offer and get the absolute best VPN deal you will find all year. Scan the QR code on screen, click the link in the description, or visit expressvpn.com/BenYT. By visiting my special link, you'll get 4 extra months with the 12-month plan or 6 extra months with a 24-month plan totally free. Again, that's expressvpn.com/BenYT to get an extra 4 or even 6 months of ExpressVPN for free. expressvpn.com/BenYT. Okay, now I want to go through the numbers one by one because this musical, as all musicals do, lives or dies on the numbers. I know this because I'm a big fan of musical theater. I grew up on musical theater. My father and I actually just put up a musical ourselves in Israel, which we will be bringing, I hope, to the United States at some point, about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. In any case, as a big fan of musical theater, a musical is only as good as the numbers and the production of the numbers. If you're just looking at this as a book or looking at it as a libretto, that'd be a problem. But every time people sing, it's Stephen Schwartz music and Stephen Schwartz lyrics, which are good. So we're going to go through these one by one. They're not all equivalently good. I do have particular issues with the last number, but let's go through some of the numbers in this musical. The opening number in the musical, No One Mourns the Wicked, is, I think, drawn out too long. One of the big problems with the movie is that it is 2 hours and 40 minutes long. Okay, that's crazy. The entire musical on Broadway, Act 1 and 2, is 2 hours and 40 minutes long, including a 15-minute intermission. That means that these movies are twice the length of the original Broadway musical. So the question is, what's filling that gap? Now, some of that is that the numbers are lengthened because there's more dancing, for example, as we'll talk about in a little while. Some of that is that they've added some useless backstory that you absolutely don't need, and that is revealed later on in the musical version that is in the theater. In No One Mourns the Wicked, you get this very long flashback to the childhood of Elphaba, where apparently she's being treated badly by her father and all this sort of stuff. One of the plot points I found very irritating that they keep going back to is this idea that Elphaba feels guilty about her own childhood, and the backstory for why she feels guilty is because she was the product of her mother's affair. Her dad was afraid that her sister would be a product of her mother's affair and didn't want her sister to be green as well, and so her mom took a bunch of drugs, and then the baby was born, and the baby was born paraplegic.
My goodness. It's okay.
I don't know why in the world Elphaba would feel guilty about that. That makes no sense. Whenever anybody tries to do this in TV or film, where it's like, you were born and your mom died in childbirth, you should feel guilty. That's the worst excuse for feeling guilty ever. Like, who's taken in by that? Who's like, oh my God, you're right, I shouldn't have been born. If only I had not been born, mom would have been fine. Like, TV and movies need to put that one to bed. Anyway, there's a lot of backstory in No One Mourns the Wicked. And the problem is, as we'll see, this is one of the problems that Chu has as a director. He has a habit in this musical of breaking up the songs, which loses momentum. So No One Mourns the Wicked is a very long opener. It's very long. And because it's very long, you don't get the sort of build and climax and momentum of the number. Okay, next, you get Dear Old Shiz, which is a fine intro. Again, that's just them singing about the school that Glinda and Elphaba are going to go to. It takes too long. And they keep lengthening the plot here. So in the original musical, Elphaba is going to Shiz University, and so is Glinda, and they end up as roommates. That's like right off the bat. You don't need this big introduction where Elphaba is not supposed to be there, but she's there to help her sister, and then she's accidentally enrolled because she has a magical moment. Like, all of that is unnecessary. You could just start off with them as roommates, and it would have saved you like at least 15 minutes of intro in the film, probably. Okay, then you get to the first really good number in the film, The Wizard and I. The Wizard and I is a terrific number. It's a good number in the theater. It's a good number in the film. Michelle Yeoh tries to sing here, but that's not what this is. This is the first time Cynthia Erivo really goes for it, and she's terrific. She's a good actress. You can feel her angst at feeling as though she's out of place. I can't rave enough about her performance in this. She really should win Best Actress, I think, this year for this performance. Really. It'd be good for Hollywood for her to do that. Blockbusters should win big awards at the Academy Awards, and Cynthia Erivo is terrific in this film. Okay, fast forward to the next number. What is this feeling? Again, this is one of those areas where Cynthia Erivo is just so much better on screen than Ariana Grande that when you put them side by side, it doesn't tend to work amazingly well. This is one of the problematic dynamics in the film. And it's very hard when you're casting what is essentially a two-part musical. If one of the parts is significantly weaker than the other, then there's an imbalance. And so Cynthia Erivo is so much better an actress than Ariana Grande that she tends to blow her off the screen. Every time the two of them are on screen together, you're watching Cynthia Erivo, you're not watching Ariana Grande. The other problem is, again, the pacing. So it's a very upbeat, peppy number, right? Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? You have to move it at that pace, or a little bit slower than that maybe. But what you don't want are long breaks in the middle of that number for dialogue, or for wandering around the room, or for moving, or stuff like that. It lengthens the number beyond what it's supposed to be. I wanted more from this number than I got. Again, I don't hate the number, but in the theater, it's a really, really funny number. And because they keep lengthening the number, every joke, instead of landing as a jab, feels like it's supposed to be a haymaker, and it isn't. Next, you get to Something Bad. This song is really more of a plot point than anything else. You know, it is what it is. First big number in the show, like first big number that has big group number, is Dancing Through Life. I thought they did a great job with this number. I thought it was really good. Now, there are a lot of people who are being critical of the fact that they gate it up, which they certainly do. They have a bunch of male characters who are now attracted to Prince Fiero, pretty obviously, and they have him flirting with both boys and girls. And if you watched the press rollout for this film, the most irritating and stupid thing about the press rollout for this film was Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo suggesting that there was a sexual undertone to the friendship between Glinda and Elphaba, which, by the way, defeats the entire purpose of the musical in about 8 different ways. They're fighting over a boy in the musical. They're literally fighting over a boy in the musical. And the whole point is that they're friends. If there's something sexual, none of it works. Okay, well, I don't know when it became a thing in Hollywood that people aren't allowed to be friends. If 2 dudes are friends, they must be gay, and if 2 ladies are friends, they must be lesbians. Do these people have any friends? Like, any friends at all? What is wrong with people that they, like, do they feel the necessity to f all of their friends? It's very strange. Anyway, that is not a necessity in this musical, and it's stupid. In Dancing Through Life, there is a bunch of this sort of stuff where he's flirting with both boys and girls, and it's dumb, and there's no reason for it, but just as a number, it works really, really well. It's well choreographed. They have some cool set pieces, right? They have a library that is spinning centrifugally, and people are moving through it, and that's kind of a cool look. And it also happens to be a good number. They lengthen the number way out, but it covers a lot of plot points. So that is okay, because it actually forwards the plot in some fairly dramatic ways. And again, you get the original iteration of Dancing Through Life in its completion before you get to a lengthened version of the song. So you get like the chorus and the bridge and the chorus. You get all of that right up front, and then you have some underscoring and they bring it back and all of that. And that's okay. If I get the full playthrough, then I'm okay with you lengthening the back end of the song. So Dancing Through Life I thought was quite well done. Okay, then you get to Popular. Again, I was underwhelmed by Popular in the film. Again, this is Ariana Grande. It's supposed to be her big showpiece, and it's supposed to be cutesy and fun. And I just don't think Ariana Grande has the chops to pull this off. I just don't. I thought that she was kind of dull on screen. And this was one of the big hits from the actual musical theater. The 2 biggest hits from this musical on Broadway were Popular and Defying Gravity. Those were the 2 biggest hits. Popular is charming and funny, and it's supposed to be bubbly and upbeat. And Ariana Grande she just can't land a comic line. She's just inherently not a very funny person. Kristen Chenoweth is. I mean, just listen to the original recording of Kristen Chenoweth doing it, or watch her perform it at the Tonys, versus Ariana Grande, and you'll see a vast gap between how they perform this. And frankly, it's kind of a problem for Ariana Grande. Okay, then we get to more Cynthia Erivo. Again, I'm gonna rave about every number Cynthia Erivo does. She's terrific. I'm Not That Girl is a good number. I don't think it's like a great Broadway number, but it's a good number. And Cynthia Erivo can sing the shit out of anything, and she's a really good actress. So I'm Not That Girl is really well done. Okay, now, One Short Day. So this number is one of the ones that they lengthened out. And I understand that they were trying to give some more backstory to what's happening in Oz. You get the whole story of the Grimmery, which is kind of the spell book over there, a backstory into who ran Oz before the Wizard of Oz took over. You don't really learn very much about it. But listen, it's an opportunity for us to see Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel, which was fun. And I enjoyed that as a musical theater fan. I enjoyed seeing them. As I said before, I think the thing that you see is that Kristen Chenoweth is better than pretty much everybody on the screen except for Cynthia Erivo. She's really, really talented. Seeing her and Idina Menzel acting together and them kind of jostling one another, which is part of this song, is really fun. I thought the choreography in One Short Day was a little weird. It's kind of stompy and bizarrely hip-hop oriented in some ways that I thought was kind of strange. But overall, it's fine. Okay, next you move to A Sentimental Man. That's the Jeff Goldblum number. He sings for like 1 minute. Didn't know he could sing, but apparently he can do a little bit of singing. Jeff Goldblum, I thought, is sufficiently weird. Hey, here's actually my biggest problem with the film. You ready? My biggest problem with the film is Defying Gravity. Okay, now this is the big hit of the musical. It's the thing that all the little girls are gonna go around singing. Defying Gravity, the closest comp to Defying Gravity is another Idina Menzel hit, Let It Go, right? So Defying Gravity and Let It Go are very similar in some ways musically. Defying Gravity just repeats that phrase, Defying Gravity, a bunch of times, and the musical phrase, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like over and over and over and over until it's an earworm that is baked into your brain for the rest of time, and on your deathbed you'll be singing it. It also builds. Okay, so it's a plot point, and it builds. So I went back and looked, because I was curious. The original Broadway theater production of Defying Gravity, there are a bunch of plot points that happen in the middle of that. Cynthia Erivo, who's Elphaba, is now running away from the wizard. It's become clear that the wizard is a bad guy. She's running away, and she asks Glinda to join her in running away, and the two of them will lead some sort of rebellion against the Wizard of Oz. And so she asks her to join her, and they're friends now. And Glinda basically says, I can't. I don't have the stones for it. And Elphaba says, okay, fine, I'm going to go ahead and do it on my own, and that's when she starts to fly. Right? That's what happens in the musical. So the entirety of Defying Gravity in the musical theater, it runs somewhere between 5 and 6 minutes. Defying Gravity in the film runs, I counted it, 14 minutes. 14 minutes. The entire sequence is 14 minutes, and it includes a couple of different weird action sequences that you totally don't need and are totally unnecessary. And this is a big problem. They do it in the middle of the song. There are certain things musically that you require when you have a number like Defying Gravity. It builds. That number builds and builds and builds and builds until she hits the big note at the very end, and the chorus is singing underneath her, and curtain for Act 1. That's what the number is designed to do. It's designed to build. The problem is that there are like 5, 6, I can't even count them because I've only seen it once. There are several breaks in the middle of the song that totally destroy the momentum of the song. Totally destroy it. By the time Elphaba hits the high note at the end, all semblance of momentum in the number has been destroyed. And the only way that the director can then create momentum is to have her do a sort of bizarre Superman thing at the very end where she's riding on the broom. And first of all, her cape randomly grows to be extraordinary proportions. And then second, she is going, and then you get the usual kind of Superman movie thing that you now have where she's moving at this speed and then bam, right? She shoots off into the sunset. All of that is totally fine. But the problem is, of course, that none of that is reliant on the music. And it's a musical. It is a musical, right? The musical is what matters here. By extending the length of that number, fully 14 minutes, you destroy the entire build. Like the suspense goes out of the music. So the last part of the song, there's no reason why any of that should be broken up. Because once you break that up, you've destroyed the entire she's getting herself going, right? Plot-wise, musically, she's getting herself going because she's about to lead a giant rebellion against the most powerful person in Oz. You cannot break it up with a bunch of cutaways to people who are freaked out on the side, or to flying monkeys, or to the Wizard of Oz looking around with all this. You can't do that.
Stop it.
For the entire last part, the focus should be on her. And it's like, I think it's an actual major problem with the musical. This is the original Broadway version, okay? Right, the momentum, right? Right.
And nobody in all of us knows
right, goes right one verse into the next, right?
is ever gonna bring.
all continuous. If you break it up, it's a problem. Right, that's great. Okay, that's a terrific number because the end of that number is all continuous. It's all continuous. And they don't do that. When you get to the movie, they break it up like 10 different ways. It's a massive problem.
Come and fly high, defying gravity, and soon I'll match the memory now.
This. You totally destroyed the entire build. Totally destroyed it. Listen to how bad that is, what they just did right there. Destroyed it.
Betrayed me!
It's the big number in the show and you destroyed it. For no reason.
Nobody in all of
Now you can't get the momentum started again.
that there is or was is ever gonna bring me down. I hope you're happy. Bring me
Even if you're gonna do that with the last note. No. Because now she's saying ah. You can't do that. No, wrong. Again. And then you get this. What are you doing? That's curtain. And this is when you have right into the distance. You totally f***ed the number. You f***ed it. That's not how you do a musical theater number. It's not how you do it. I played you them back to back so you could see. Which one made you actually have like hair stand up on the back of your arms? The first one, it builds. That one, you have that giant break where they go back to unlimited. You don't need that. They already sang that earlier in the song. So this pisses me off. I'm like, on an actual musical level, it makes me mad. Doesn't mean I'm gonna start burning the Wicked dolls or anything like that. Overall, really enjoyed the film. Because of the sort of mature themes, I wouldn't be showing this to like my 10-year-old daughter. The musical really is not appropriate for, I think, people who are under the age of maybe 14, 15 years old. The reason I say that is because once you get to Wicked Part 2, there's some hanky-panky between the Scarecrow and Elphaba, so it's not like particularly child-friendly. But as far as whether it's a good movie or not, yeah, it's a very good movie. The criticisms that I'm making are criticisms about a movie that I think could be like 15% better. I think that if they had cut some of the early stuff, made it tighter, I think that if they had not F to the last number, that definitely would have helped. But overall, very enjoyable, much better than I thought it would be. You totally f***ed the number. You f***ed it. Okay, that's